first I just want to say that this is my very first summit, and it's very inspiring to be here. I really appreciated all the presentations so far, and I've learned a lot from all of you who have been doing this for much longer than I have. But I thought I would take the opportunity to share a little bit of the perspective from a very industrial business-to-business company, and how we're trying now to connect and better leverage the data that we already have, and then complement that with knowledge that we're missing. Because as the world leading manufacturer and provider of bearings and supporting technologies, we are already at the heart of millions of machines, windmills, vehicles, manufacturing plants all around the world. And by combining the data that we already collect from the machines that our bearings are in, and then combine that with knowledge about the target group and customers, I believe that we are in a great position to provide our customers and also the world with reliable rotation. Did you know that an unplanned stop for a train typically costs the operator about 15,000 euros? And that an unplanned stop typically takes 3 times longer to solve than a planned one. And why is this a problem? Well, rail is becoming a very attractive solution for sustainable transportation and mobility. And as cities are growing larger, there's an increased demand for efficient transport. And we expect trains to leave and arrive on time. And this, of course, is increasing competition. And there are actually more operators and their trains on the tracks today than ever before. And yet, there is a need to even double the amount of traffic on existing networks, which of course is a huge challenge when it comes to capacity. And to cope with this capacity challenges and also the tight schedules, we need to really make sure that there are no unplanned stops and there are no failures, because these are very costly, not only in terms of money, but also in terms of brand reputation, which means that reliability and availability is really key. And to cope with this, all the train operators need to constantly improve their life cycle cost of their fleets, while also keeping service levels high. And adding to this, there is an aging train fleet in Europe. And the older the fleet, the higher the cost for maintenance, but also the greater the risk for unplanned stops. And this will lead to a larger cost for maintenance going forward, and also a bigger need for efficient maintenance planning. Because maintenance operations is a cost driver. It takes about 20% of the total life cycle cost. And with innovation increasing performance, we also see that typically at the wheel, it is the bearing that is the bottleneck, and the bottleneck that also dictates the maintenance intervals. And today, most of the maintenance is time-based, meaning that it's scheduled to happen at very fixed intervals. But what if operators could anticipate potential failures and extend those maintenance intervals, and only perform maintenance when it's actually needed? SKF Insight Whale is a wireless sensor that measures bearing health, and that includes vibration patterns and temperature, but also location and speed. And it's located very close to the bearing to enable very accurate data collection. This allows us to very early on detect bearing damage and also anticipate potential anomalies in the rotating parts. And it also allows us to discover potential failures at a very early stage. So these wireless sensors are then mounted on each axle box, and there's one per wheel and one per bearing. So on a train like this one, there would be about 40 sensors. And these sensors are all individual entities, which means that data will be sent from each of these sensors to the cloud. And if one of them would fail, the others will not be affected. And we process this data for our customers. And in case of an anomaly, we would send an alarm through an app and a web interface to them with a recommended action. So that means that operators would get advance notification of a potential failure with actionable information, allowing them enough time to plan the needed maintenance operation that would be required. Because estimations show that a maintenance operation costs around 30,000 euros. So there is a lot of money for them to save here, up to 1 million euros over the train life. So if we would get them to move from time-based to condition-based maintenance, we could extend their maintenance intervals, and they could use the full potential of the bearings. And this would ultimately improve both reliability, availability of the trains, but also improve the life cycle cost for the operators. So why do I tell this story? Well, it's all about customer value. Ultimately, we must provide our customers with value. And this is just one example of how we use knowledge from the data, from the products and customer applications to help our customers achieve their goals. And we do the same in windmills with remote condition monitoring sensors, and also in manufacturing plants around the world. This is, of course, also a great opportunity for us to extract knowledge from that data. And we use this as good feedback for us to learn and improve. Because the knowledge that we extract from monitoring these bearings, we use them in product development, so we can adapt or develop new products that are even more efficient and suitable for a specific application. If we look at another example, this is from food and beverage. And this is an example of where we combine insights about customer issues also with information about the target groups to help drive demand for a new product. In food and beverage, we know that up to 25% of the maintenance cost, the maintenance budget, relates to poor lubrication. And despite strict regulations and also an increased focus on the environment, there are some aspects of food and beverage production that still remain unchanged, and the lubrication practices is one of them. Because lubrication and relubrication of the processing machinery has been the leading maintenance strategy for years. And because customers consider this as the foundation of plant reliability, they don't really see a need to change approach. And especially if this relubrication process keeps their machinery up and running, why should they change? We have always done it this way, they say. Well, we claim that those are the most 7 expensive words in business, because this is quite a reactive approach that can actually cause as many problems as it can solve. And it can also increase the risk for both food safety and worker safety. Because machinery is typically cleaned using high-pressure water. And then they have washdown cycles that could be daily or weekly, depending on the type of production and routine. And these washdown cycles also creates a never-ending cycle of waste. And the lubricants that are being rinsed off the machines typically leave grease in the production plant's wastewater. And during these washdown cycles, it's quite common to relubricate the bearings. And during the relubrication, they put in a lot of grease, which means that excess grease is pushed out past the bearing seal. Now it gets a bit technical, but and this over-lubrication increases the risk that grease actually contaminates the food. And it can also cause equipment failure and unplanned downtime with a lot of grease out in the air. It can also increase the risk for accidents because of the slippery floors, and that impacts operator safety. So we want customers to rethink this lubrication process and also reconsider their lubrication methods. So we tell them, what if you could eliminate the need to relubricate many of your bearings and find alternative ways to keep your plant running very efficiently and also improve both food safety and worker safety, leading them to SKF's relubrication-free technologies that can help customers to achieve substantial savings in maintenance, both in lubricants and in labor, and also then reduce the risks. So to build this story that I just shared with you, and to identify the industry pain points and potential risks, we've done our homework. we have collaborated with the Swedish Research Center. We've talked a lot with our sales force, and we've evaluated many of the technology assessments that we do with customers. We also did research into the target group and their attitudes, their preferences, their behavior, and the communication landscape that we're in, just to better understand how to reach them with relevant content in the channels that they prefer. We didn't do this in all countries, of course, but we did it in a few selected markets. And by combining the understanding of the customer issues with the knowledge about the target group, we could create a relevant message that we would hope resonate with the target group. The result here was a thought leader campaign that is helping to pave the way for a product that we actually are launching later this year. The main objectives were to increase awareness about lubrication maintenance and ultimately generate leads for our relubrication-free bearings. We used an integrated approach in different channels. One challenge here for us is also that much of the sales to this target group actually goes through distribution, which means that we don't even own the email addresses or the information about the end customers that buy our products. We also involved our sales team and provided them with conversation guidelines, presentation material, a lot of tools like calculators that they could use with customers, just so they would be prepared and that they would support the external activities that we would do. And this is actually a campaign that's still running in some countries, but I wanted to share a few highlights of what we've learned so far. We analyzed what content and what channels were most successful based on the objectives that we had to increase awareness and generate leads. We know, for example, that in France, LinkedIn was most successful when it came to reach, but it was the emails that converted the best and generated the majority of the leads. We also saw that different images worked better for engagement in social media, whereas others were better when it came to conversion and click-through rate. And this is a global campaign. So what we've learned in one country, we can also use as benchmark as we move over to the next. We've had to change the activation and tweak it a bit, depending on the country we're in. It's not just a plug-in solution that works everywhere. The countries have sort of had a library of assets and material to choose from, and then they localize this as needed. We could see differences in countries quite close to each other, like France and Germany, already in the target group research, in terms of how they use search and what resonated best with them. And the key here to me is really that from believing that we know our customers very well, we have a sales team that claims that we meet our customers every day, every week. This is business to business. We have now an organization, I think, that is starting to understand that buying behaviors change also for us and our customers, and we need more of an omni-channel approach to meet our customers when and where they want to meet with us. And we're no experts, we're just beginners in this field, but we are trying to learn, and I'm really convinced that this is the way to go. And just as we have to add value to our customers, we also need to provide them with a great experience. So by really capturing the insights from the customer interaction with us in different channels, we can further improve that experience and also add more value. And now I might be thrown out the door, but we are no experts, but the ambition is really to do this in an integrated way across the country, or the company, sorry. So we actually adopted AMEC's integrated framework, and we developed something that we now call our marketing compass. And we use this now across departments and functions and countries when we develop campaigns and programs. And it's very simplified, as you can see. It doesn't contain the same level of detail when it comes to outputs and outcomes and outtakes, and it's not all about measurement. It does take us through the whole process, though. So the red part here is really about aligning marketing objectives with business objectives. It's also a lot around getting commitment, because we had a history of preparing for product launches and then there wasn't an interest in the markets to actually do what we wanted them to do. So it's all about commitment and alignment. The yellow phase here is really all about the preparation. So doing the research that might be needed, preparing all the activities, setting up the data collection in the relevant channels, etc. Then the green part is really where the implementation happens. So it's about execution and then monitoring. And then the blue part is all about follow-up, evaluating customer response and doing the analysis and follow-up work. So it is simplified, but it's simplified to make sense for everyone. And what I think is key here is that it provides us with a common framework that we can use across the company, from global to local, from marketing to sales to communications. And that consistency, to me, is really critical for success. We also use what we call now the Compass Charter, which is also borrowed from AMEC, but with our fields in it. And we use this as a project management tool, as part of the project planning, to really fill in and not miss any important steps. And I mean, my role in the company is fairly new. I only started this position in February this year, even if I have a long career in SKF before that. And to me, it's really all about setting the direction and developing the tools and the processes that we need to do in order to say how to do this. I also spend a lot of time now hands-on with my colleagues, supporting them in different projects. If it's smartifying objectives or identifying the right metrics for a specific campaign or event. I'm also having a lot of global online training webinars with colleagues around the world to make sure that we use the same terminology, the same framework, and also the same metrics in a consistent way across the company. And I encourage my colleagues to really share their experiences, both the best practices, but also the issues that they face. So we can learn from each other, but also develop together. Because it really requires teamwork. If we are to be successful in this, we need both functions and countries to work together. And we're really not there yet. We've just started on this journey, and we're taking it step by step. But if we do this in a common way, we can also do it on all levels. I think it's obvious that we all want to do this on a campaign level, to understand the impact or the return on investment from a campaign. But we also want to look at this on an aggregated level. So from an industry perspective, or a country perspective, or maybe even a group perspective. What are more the long-term position changes? What can we see over time? And if we use the same framework and common denominators on how to work with this, we can also share, discuss, and compare across the company. We also use what we now refer to as the Compass Tracker, which is basically an Excel file that lists all the major campaigns and product launches and programs that we run from the central perspective. And then we use this to follow up and track progress in the different countries. So how far have we come? Do we have commitment? How far have we come in the implementation? And then you see the colors here represent the different stages in the compass. So it is a journey that we have just embarked on. We have a lot of data, and we have it from products and different systems. And we've used much of that data already since long, but maybe more in silos and not always putting that data next to each other and work with it actively. I think that one main difference is the way and the focus that we have now on the customer experience, and integrated knowledge and insights from our customer and the way we interact with them, and not just assuming that we know our customers inside out. The ambition is really to do this in an integrated way across the company, to become a bit more insights-driven. So by combining the knowledge that we have from the target groups and customers with data that we already have on products and systems, I really hope and think that we can provide more value to our customers and help them achieve their goals. That's it.
Thank you very much. Special thanks for me, because I will admit I asked our all remaining speakers today, please look at the time clock. Please do not go
Had
into
45 seconds
red.
to go.
You're good. You're good. Yeah. And how interesting. When we conceived developed the AMEC integrated evaluation framework, and we've got Paul Hender and Richard, Giles Petty is arriving tomorrow. Jem McNamara is also here. The thrust of it was to provide something that would give consistency. And I found it interesting that you've interpreted that as the SKF marketing compass.
Yes.
I loved the reference you gave to online training sessions for international colleagues. First question, please. Very creative.
Daria Guščić, Newton Media Group, Central and Southeast Europe. Thank you, Sofia, for this very interesting, very well structured and insightful presentation. We surely can learn a lot from it. And it is clearly about changing beliefs, attitudes, and behavior. So my question would be, what was the big challenge in implementing your strategic communication? And do you already see some impact on your business results?
Well, I think it's too early, unfortunately, to see any business results yet. But there has been challenges for sure. I think that there's been a change in approach. I think that we also from management have heard that we're no longer just a sort of support function, but we should actively contribute to really generate demand for our products. And I think that's helped everyone to feel that this is something we need to work on, and we need to do this in order to show sort of result and our value. I think that some of the main challenges that I've faced in sort of getting into this is to have this common understanding, which is why this compass has been really important, because then we have sort of the same framework to talk and discuss around. I think another challenge for me, and we've heard a few other people talked about this today, it's been also all the data that we have. I think that we've said, oh, but do we have enough data? And there's too much data because we don't know where to start, and that's typically the question I get too. Where do I start? How do I get started? And it's a lot of chasing and mapping of data systems and structures, and how do we retrieve the right data from the various systems. So that has also been a challenge. We also have some in-house activities in doing advanced analytics and in-house dashboards, and I'm hoping we will get there, and that will help many, I think, to visualize this in a better way. So far it's quite a manual work, but that's also been a challenge for sure.
Thank you. We've got time for one more. Right at the back. There cannot be anyone further back than you. That's almost worth a prize.
Hi, thanks. Philip Lynch from Newton Insight in London. Thank you very much for that. All this talk of railway bearings was strangely refreshing after a morning of media measurement. I'm going to pick up on something that Barry said, which was about the integrated framework primarily driven for communications. So what was your inspiration to use it as the basis for measurement across the marketing spectrum? And what was your experience and any challenges in getting buy-in from colleagues across the marketing function to support use of the integrated framework?
I think to me it really helped just to put it into a context, because I think that everyone understood that this is the way to go, but it's a bit difficult to sort of understand how to structure it. And in discussions and seeing this, the AMEC integrated framework is it sort of makes sense anyway. And by discussing internally and simplifying things and changing a few wordings, but we talk about this rather than that. So it's been an iterative process across communications and marketing, but also then shown to other key stakeholders outside of that community. And it's been just the process of working with this and iterating it between stakeholders has also been very much of a learning curve, but also very valuable in how it's been anchored with key stakeholders. So I'm sure that will be also part of the success in this.
Thank you. Great question. Would you thank Sofia, please? Thank you for being with us. Thank you. a drinks